Hey folks, BlackCross here, and I can't believe they done it. They actually done it. We are now getting a PlayStation Classic Mini Edition. Yes, it's hard to believe it, we're actually in the PlayStation 1 Mini. It's hard to believe it, you know? It's like, of all the biggest things that people have talked about, you know, there's the N64 Mini and then the PlayStation Mini. You know, a lot of people were like, hey, maybe Sony might jump into this. And a lot of people are like, we're still concerned with Nintendo right now because they've just released their NES and SNES. So far, there has been no news for N64 right now. However, PlayStation just had dropped the bomb for a reveal of the PlayStation Classic Mini. Now, in terms of details of what we have so far as we know in terms of like the scope of like what the console is and everything like that, as well as like maybe at least about a few games of what is going to come pre-loaded. However, though, there are some other questions that needs to be discussed, so let's go ahead and dive into this, shall we? Now, the first thing that I want to go ahead and throw into this is the fact that it's going to come with at least 20 pre-loaded games. So, in terms of like what we know of so far, they have revealed at least a couple of them. Being that of Final Fantasy VII, Jumping Flash, Ridge Racer Type 4, Tekken 3, and Wild Arms. So in other words, in terms of like officially what has been confirmed for the PlayStation Classic Edition, there's at least going to be 5 that we know of right off the back, and we are waiting for the other 15. And needless to say, Final Fantasy VII, right off the back, you've already got people's attention. Wild Arms, again, right off the back, you got people's attention. What else they're going to add on to it, I don't know yet. Again, we're still waiting on like other details as to like what else the PlayStation Classic is going to feature, particularly since the fact that there's a bunch of different things that I actually want to bring up. So first and foremost, I'm going to go ahead and show you an image that they had put out, being that of the overall scope of what all you actually will get. And basically, the system itself is basically, according to what they quoted, 45% smaller than the original PlayStation 1. And 45%, let me go ahead and show you in scales. Okay, so this right here is a PlayStation 1 system. Technically, I don't have it up and running, mostly because I don't have the parts to do it. But it's mostly for like display purposes, personally for me, because I like Sony particularly favored, if you haven't figured it out by now. But anyway, if we're to say 45% smaller, this is a PlayStation 1 system. So that means it's going to be at least about that much smaller than the original PlayStation 1. So, while that's the case, it also has a bunch of different features. One of them having obviously the power button. It also has the reset button. You have 2 controllers, both of them that you can use for couch co-op purposes, which is very nice. But you also have the fact that it also features an HDMI cable hookup. The PlayStation 1 does not have an HDMI cable. Never has, unless you modded one. You know, because there's a bunch of people who have actually modded the N64 as well as the PlayStation 1 to where they could play it on on a high-def TV with the HDMI cables. But this one, however, will be built with the HDMI cable outlet to where you can hook it up to any TV that's out there. There is, however, a few questions that I do want to bring up. One of them is the fact that technically you get a USB cable. A USB cable. Now, here's the interesting thing. One would think that the USB cables would be used for the controllers, but you're only getting one. That, and also the PlayStation 1 controllers each have their own connection cord. So they're like the standard PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 1 cables for the controllers would have. And basically, they hook up to the normal system as it is. So what's the USB port for anyway? Well, keep in mind, it says it comes preloaded 20 games. Preloaded. That's a term that's interesting. So I'm wondering if Sony is using an ideal method. Now, hear me out when I say this. Now, I've thought for the longest time the only way you're going to get everyone's favorite PlayStation games is if you have the system and you can download the games on there. What if that USB cord is to hook up to your PlayStation 4/PlayStation 3 and download any PlayStation Classic games that you have pre-downloaded in the past and uploaded to your PlayStation Classic system? If that's the case, they have made a very, very positive decision when it comes to making the PlayStation Classic Edition. Never mind the fact that it comes with 20 games preloaded as is, but the fact that you have the ability now to where you can upload other game titles that you have downloaded from your PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 onto the PlayStation Classic Edition. This is actually pretty interesting to see. I'm actually wondering if that is the case. If it is, then they have won a lot of people's attentions, and this is going to be a hot seller by the time it comes out. But there is another question. If you notice, technically the PlayStation 1 Classic has every feature you can think of that it would normally do, except for this function. Mostly because technically I don't think it can do that. I mean, Record, much like with the NES and the SNES, they do have that looking feature. But does that mean that they can use it? No, of course not. It is not able to. But the PlayStation 1, because of it being 45% smaller, it's not going to have the feature to where you can play your disc. So obviously that nails that out of the way. But the idea of being able to play previous PlayStation 1 titles, it makes me wonder, with the USB cord, the fact that you could, again, we don't know the details, they're just right now revealing it, but let's say the USB cord is used to where you can download your PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 PS1 titles onto the system itself. That would mean that they might actually be considering, might be in the key word, be considering trying to expand their PlayStation collection title listings. Because the thing is, they don't have a large lineup of games that people want to get. And what I mean by want to get, I mean like there's a lot that they still don't have. For example, they don't have Medieval 2. They've got Medieval 1, but they've never had Medieval 2. They don't even have Nightmare Creatures, much less Nightmare Creatures 2, which for those that don't know, yes, it had a sequel. There are a bunch of other titles for PlayStation that they need to consider, hey, people are going to want these titles as well, so we might as well go ahead and try to get them. They do have some of the more harder to find, like for example, Tombi and Tombi 2 for that matter. So naturally, you will be getting the majority of the PlayStation 1 titles you normally wouldn't get outside in the field, but you'll be able to get them digitally. And legally, of course. Let's be more specific. I'm hoping that that is the case. If it is, PlayStation has made a bold statement and have made an ideal gamble as to like, okay, there's a lot of titles that people talk about wanting on the system, and really there's no hard drive space to where you could put all of them on there. So what if we made it custom to where you could pre-upload data from the two systems onto the Mini? And hopefully that might get approvals. And if that's the case, it's going to be a hot seller. I think it will be anyway. Something that I think Nintendo did not consider because of the fact that they have the NES and the SNES. I think Nintendo thought, okay, we have a lot of titles, but they're specific titles that people really, really want. However, in Sony's case, they have a lot of titles, but so much so that people have come up with top 10 lists that they think should be on the system and stuff like that, and there are a wide variety of them. I guarantee that there's at least a good 100 plus that people can easily label that should be on the system and still growing to this day right now. It's going to be nearly impossible to do stuff like that because of the hard drive space. Unless they put like a 5 terabyte space in there, which really you wouldn't need a 5 terabyte space, but depending on how the system would run, it would be probably necessary. Then again, too, depending on if the USB cord is used for that purpose alone, there's really no reason to have fear of space needed for the PlayStation Mini, because technically you'll have the ability to re-download them over and over again. Also, too, as far as I know, I don't think it has the ability to hook up on the internet. Otherwise, I don't think you would need the USB port for that matter. So again, to use the USB port at all, there would be no need for the internet connection because you can pre-download from the two consoles onto the Mini. But if you had the internet connection, there'd be no need for a cable outlet at all to transfer data. Now, in terms of availability, this one will be available to be purchased on December 3rd of this year. Just in time for Christmas. Go figure, right? But yeah, it's going to be coming out December 3rd, and it's going to be available for the price of $99.99, and even $100. Of course, is it worth $100? I think for a lot of people, they're going to be asking this question, is it going to be worth $100 even for that matter? Well, for starters, you have 20 games. So if we were to say that each game was going to be charged up to at least, like, say, we'll say each game costs about, like, $5. You're getting $5 per game probably. And 5 times 20, that easily is $100. So you're getting like $5 per game. Never mind the fact that you're getting the system itself. So, and I say $5 per game because technically the PlayStation Store sells these games at like 7 or 8, I think, if I'm not mistaken, depending on when you can get them per se. Maybe you can even get them at the deal. Who knows? But I want to say that it's worth it. I want to say it's worth it for any PlayStation fan per se. For any PlayStation fan, they will probably like this one. But as far as like if it works the way I think it works, I may be wrong, but I want to say the only reason why you would have the USB port is to upload other games that they couldn't put on the system, and you could put them on yourself. I don't know about ROM hacks per se or anything like that, but I imagine given people's mind, this one will probably be hackable. I would not doubt that, because let's put it this way, Sony's had a bad record of having people hacking into the systems and being able to make emulators and stuff like that for themselves, as well as ripping games from the disc itself. So I have no doubt in my mind that the PlayStation 1 Mini is going to be just the same way for where people can hack into it as well. But who knows? Who's to say? I'm looking forward to it. But let me know in the comments below what you think of it. Are you getting excited for the PlayStation Mini now? If so, what are your thoughts on it? As well as what do you think is going to be the other 15 titles that could be preloaded on here? So thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. This is BlackCross signing off. Catch you later, guys.